Okay, we'll call the meeting of the Nantucket Airport Commission to order at 5 o'clock, Tuesday, November 10th. First announcement is that this meeting is being both audio and video recorded. We have Commissioner Dan Drake on speakerphone, so all votes tonight will be conducted by roll call. And with that, we'll get started with the meeting. First, are there any comments on the agenda? No. Hearing none, we'll move forward with the agenda as drafted. And we have for consideration tonight the minutes of October 13th, 2015. Has everyone had a chance to review those minutes?
Not really. We just got them handed out. Wasn't that a handout today?
They're perfect, Jeanette.
They're perfect? Okay, good. Great.
So do I have a motion to either continue another meeting or to go ahead and ratify those minutes, accept those minutes?
Motion to adopt the minutes.
I'll second.
So we'll do a roll call for the minutes. Commissioner Buscarin?
Yes.
I'm going to abstain because I've not read them totally.
Okay.
Aye.
Planzer? Dan, for the minutes?
Aye.
And then the chair votes aye. Next, we have the warrants of 10/21 and November 4th for ratification. Is there any discussion on the warrants? Hearing none, would entertain a motion to ratify those warrants.
Motion to ratify the warrants.
I'll second.
Commissioner Buscarin?
Aye.
Aye.
Topham? Lancer?
Aye.
Drake?
Aye.
Gasparo? Aye. Moving on, is there any public comment tonight? Seeing none, we'll move forward to agenda item number 4. We have the Nantucket Wine Festival, a hangar event presentation. And I see that we have Ms. Bean and another individual here. If you could use one of the 2 microphones, we'd appreciate it. You can tap if it's working.
They were setting that one up.
Okay.
May I suggest we get the background for this from Mr. Rafter?
Sure.
First.
That sounds good.
Sure. You may remember last year we had some challenges with regard to this event, and we had asked the Wine Festival to complete a number of items, including a very detailed plan, contact lists, et cetera, and they did supply us with all of the information. There were some small hiccups at last year's event. There were some communication challenges with regard to the airline itself, but everything else, I would say, went fairly smoothly. However, the individual at the time that was coordinating for us is no longer with the airport, and we were unable to find any of her records in the computer after she left. So we had limited information. I'm just speaking from my personal recollection of this. And again, I think it went fairly smoothly. There were some minor things that we need to address, and that's communication with the airline. But you also may recall that there was a very big concern, I think, about the timing of the event, in that there were certain things done in advance that the airport thought, should rightfully have come first, coming to this commission and asking approval and so on and so forth. So I believe the Wine Festival is here today to do just that. We're now in November, as opposed to the, I guess the event is in May or something. So.
Yeah, the festival dates are May 18th through 22nd. And so we're just sort of getting all of our ducks in a row to make sure that we have all the proper permitting and approval and everything. We went through the selectman's office, and everything else actually for the festival has been organized and approved for us to be taking the next steps to go for permitting. So meaning that we went before the selectmen agreed that we can do everything that we're proposing to do, which is pretty much what we did last year, other than the airport event, because we hadn't been able to have the opportunity to bring this before the commission or to have this discussion or recap last year, actually. So the rest of the festival and the other venues are already kind of in that approval process. So that's where we are here now.
We have not yet received a formal request or application, though, correct?
No, you have not.
Okay, so we don't have the details exactly, or if they're the same as last year, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think timing-wise, we were hoping to be able to recap last year and hear your thoughts on everything, what went well, what could be done better, so that when we propose this year's event to you, we have everything in line, kind of reacting to anything that needed to be improved upon. So we just weren't, we did try to connect in June, July, August, September. We just kind of weren't able to, and I think somebody left. So it was just sort of challenging for us to get together. But we will come back with a proposal. It would be similar to what we've done in the past, a 2-hour event on Friday of the festival. That's the 19th of May. And it would be much, it would be very similar unless there was something that the airport felt we needed to change, like the timing of the event or anything.
From my recollection, the only issue I recall from last year was that the airline that you were using gave us one count on the number of airplanes. It became another. They came in late, and there just seemed to be a gap or a lack of communication with either the crew and or the airline representative themselves. So that's something we need to tighten up.
Hi, I'm Allison Green with Wheels Up, and I was here last year. It's our company that was doing the aircraft last year, and you're absolutely correct. We had some last-minute issues, which, being part of the airport and airline business can happen. It was unfortunate, and we ended up having a plane get stuck in LaGuardia in a storm, and they wouldn't give it a slot to get out, so we ended up only having one plane to show. And so, this year, I think, we will do everything we can to obviously mitigate any sort of issue like that. It was something very unexpected, and certainly, we do tons of these events. Most of us are former NetJets people. I spent 10 years there myself, and we've done a huge number of these events in the past, and we're very good at doing them. Last year, we sort of had a perfect storm and apologized for any really inconvenience that it may have caused the airport. I know that for Wheels Up, this is a really important event for us. We do 2 major sponsorship events on the island every year. It's this and the Nantucket Project, which we are also a big sponsor of. And so it's a great opportunity for us, and we're a growing business. And you've probably seen our planes in and out of the airport quite a bit. And so we really look at this also as a partnership, and we really want to do whatever we can to make this work for you too. And Nancy and I have spent a lot of time talking about sort of, doing a little, just looking back on last year and saying what worked, what didn't. And we had a conversation with some folks last week as well over at the airport, and we got some good feedback, and we want to make it work. We really want to make it happen. So whatever we can do to make it better, we really want to see it included in the festival this year. It's important to us.
If I can ask a question.
Sure.
If I remember correctly from last year, isn't there some promotion or advertising that's done in the Washington, D.C. area about this event?
We do. Well, there is, and Nancy can probably speak to that as well. But yes, and we also have, are we still doing the event this year?
Yeah, so
I'll let Nancy answer
Well,
that.
the D.C. Market I know that for the festival, it's one that's growing very much so, that there's a lot of attendees that come from the D.C. area, and it's over the years been sort of challenging. They have to fly from here to there to everywhere to kind of get to the island, and I know that's starting to change. Similarly, Wheels Up has a lot of flights and a lot of clients and customers that are from the D.C. area that come to Nantucket. So one of the things that we do with Wheels Up is we do other hangar events with them and other locations. So they're kind of little mini versions of what we're going to do during the wine festival, and one of the locations is in D.C.
I just bring that up because we have a pretty strong D.C. market with air service.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm asking this out of ignorance, so I don't know if this makes any sense or not. But as for all of the venues that partner with the wine festival, so whether it's the White Elephant and NIR Properties or the Nantucket Yacht Club or the Westmore Club or the Dreamland Theater, we are able to include in our marketing and promotion the fact that they're partnered, that we're doing events there, that some of the festival events will happen at those locations. Is the airport, because it's a municipal, can we promote ACK? Are we allowed to, or is that something that isn't, and/or is that even of interest for us to be able to include that? Because I'm asking that because you had asked me about DC before, and that's an area that we market to pretty heavily because we have a lot of clientele that come from there. And I just don't know if that's something that would be beneficial. If it is, it's something that could be included in what we do.
I don't know that I don't know we're precluded from doing it, but I just don't know that that's the, event that an airport wants to have, alcohol and airplanes, and I don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't mean in conjunction just with, alcohol and everybody who needs to get to the island is going to come here by either boat or plane. So, we're pretty careful about how we promote that. We have an automotive sponsor and we don't promote drinking and driving. So we're very, very careful about how that branding and imaging goes. But I'm just saying if the DC market is a market that's very important, is there some way that while we're marketing down there that we can be beneficial? I don't know. And I wasn't even sure if you're allowed to put like the logo or anything of ACK on any marketing materials. I don't know if that's allowed.
Why not?
Is that copywritten? Probably is, or is not?
What, the ACK, the identifier?
Right.
No, it's,
Not
No, I
the
mean,
identifier,
we have
but
a
that
logo.
logo itself.
the logo.
I believe we have permission to use it.
We have permission to use it in the floor set, not with the oval. That was something we added.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Janine, I can't hear you.
We have it in one respect, Dan, but not within the oval. We added the oval to it, I guess.
Speaking about the
Oh,
logo.
the island image, right?
Yeah.
But we are ACK officially.
It seems to me, if I may, that, I appreciate you coming here in advance, but that what we really need is an actual application with details. And
Right.
I understand that, a meeting should occur. If I may, I would suggest that prior to the commission considering an application, that now that the connections have been made, understanding that there was a change in staff, that a meeting occur, and then you put together your actual application materials,
Yeah.
and the commission could, consider it at a future meeting. What I would,
Arthur, excuse me for interrupting, but if I might suggest that we really leave it up to Mr. Rafter whether he thinks such a meeting is necessary.
Well,
I don't think we
they've
should have a
already
meeting
met.
just for the sake of having a meeting.
Yeah,
He doesn't have to decide that now, but I just think that's the way we should do it.
they've met with the operations folks.
Yeah.
And I think they're at a point where they're probably prepared to complete an application, and then we could give them any feedback, just like we did last year, of what we would require from that.
that's fine.
Assuming the same as last.
I was simply trying to be responsive to,
Yeah.
the point, but I agree completely with, Commissioner Drake, and, whatever Manager Rafter feels would be the best way to,
So if we
proceed.
do an application, we submit it first to
To the staff, to the manager.
and then they come back with whatever they need to it, and once it gets to
That's
its
right.
place, then we present it to you.
But what's important to me, and what I want to see happen, and why I am happy that this discussion is happening in November, is that there's not additional advertising or scheduling on your part that is presumptuous that the,
Right.
that the approval will occur.
Right.
And so, I think between now and you setting up your final scheduling, I watched the Board of Selectmen meeting and, actually appreciate the action that they took, and, work with the staff and then bring it back before the commission.
Sure.
As appropriate, and we can, I think, at a future meeting, have an agenda item and actually consider the application.
Okay, great. And the timing-wise, when we launch the ticket sales or the promotion or announcements, this event is actually mostly by invitation, but it would get listed, if approved, in January 15th. So between now and January
If you
15th.
get the application to us, we'll consider it at the December meeting.
That would seem to be the best way to go. I agree.
Okay,
And then you don't have that kind of overlap of, well, we put it on our website. Anyway.
okay. Understood. Okay.
Great. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If I may, though,
Thank you.
any commissioners wish to add anything?
I would,
Or
my
any
only
questions?
comment would be to ask Mr. Rafter, were the numbers all right for you this past year of people?
Yeah, I think they were right in line with what they had put on their application. They also gave us the numbers of staff that they would have per person. They gave us the contacts, the caterers, the police department. It was a very detailed plan. Worked together to, coordinate that. But yeah, I think it was in line with about what we expected. It
Okay, great.
wasn't
Thank you.
overflowing or anything. So.
Thank you.
Mr.
Dan?
Chairman,
Yes.
I'd just like to say to Ms. Bean that I think it does still continue to stick in my craw a little bit that the wine festival went to the Board of Selectmen for approval of everything, including the airport event, and only came to the airport when told to do so by the Board of Selectmen.
I think that was last year.
We've been through this enough times in the past that I think we deserve a little more credit than that from you, just for the record.
If I understood it, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ms. Barov, I understood what Ms. Bean said. They have went to the Board of Selectmen without the airport on their list of places that they wanted.
If I may, I think it was initially included, but they came to us that day and had a meeting. They also reached out to try to have meetings with us, and it was just a scheduling issue. So they met with operations the day of the selectmen meeting, and then agreed.
Well, it should have happened before that.
Well, just to comment on that, we did actually try to meet in June, July, August, September, and October, and we just unfortunately weren't able to schedule until the day of the selectmen. But I just wanted to note that what we presented to the selectmen's office, or as our whole calendar of events for their consideration initially, had airport TBD. It had not been approved. We were not doing it, and it had TBD on the original application that evening and when we came in. It was not, we were not presumed that it was approved, nor that we were going to get approval to do it. It was TBD, based on us being able to meet with them.
Understood. Dan, anything further?
No, thank you.
Anyone else? So we'll look forward to the application, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay.
Thank you very much for showing up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Moving on with the agenda, we have pending matters. The first one is the formerly used defense site status. Mr. Rafter?
The work at the formerly used defense site is just about complete, is my understanding. The Army Corps has been working on the investigation and possibly some minor remediation. Our folks have removed the wood pile at the end closest to the road, and if you look at the site now, it's fairly level and cleaned up. It's not completely finished. There's quite a bit of work to do, I think, still, but a lot of progress was made in the past week or two with the Army Corps and their contractors out there, so that's moving along. And on the general fund repayment, still no change, nothing yet. So.
Thank you. Moving on to pending leases and contracts set forth on Exhibit 1. I see that we have a handout here.
Yes, the first one is for Potter's Industries. It's $125,000 for a 3-year contract for Type 3 glass beads for our runway and airfield markings. Very expensive, but required by FAA for our markings. And actually,
A lot of marbles.
Yeah, but it was much lower. It came in lower because we put a bid out, and it came in much lower. We had, I think, 4 or 5 companies respond, so we got a much better price this year, too. So the next is Scheiten Bachmann, which is the manufacturer of our parking revenue control system, and that is a contract for some parts, but we're awaiting town procurement approval of the contract because it's a proprietary system. Offshore Property Services is for the Clerk of the Works for $49,750 for the Air Traffic Control Tower project, and we're also awaiting procurement approval on that. So I would ask that those be approved subject to the procurement officer's approval. And COBO we removed. That's not necessary, the amendment. The work will be completed before the end of the month. And the lease amendment with Weisenthal. Have we heard back from?
I checked with him this afternoon, he didn't respond.
Okay, so that I would assume is pending. We're still waiting to hear back from Mr. Weisenthal, but that is, again, for the relocation associated with the FUDS project.
Thank you, Mr. Rafter. My one comment would be, is there anything as a commission that we should or could do to help with respect to any of these and the procurement issues? I mean, some of them seem, the one that you mentioned, Scheit and Bachman, whether or not it's a proprietary service, seems
Well,
pretty straightforward, or is it just?
No, it would appear to us, but again, the procurement office, I would say, is extremely busy too. But I know Janine has reached out to the procurement officer today to say, hey, can we get these approved? So I would expect that we'll probably hear shortly on approval from either one. That's why I would ask the commission to approve these subject to that process.
Can we do this all with one motion?
I,
You want me to take a crack at it?
I believe so. Go right ahead, please.
I move, 1, the approval of the contract with Potter Industries, LLC. 2, approval of the contract amendment with Cobo Utility Construction Corp.
We don't need that one,
date.
Dan. Sorry, we
You
don't.
don't need a vote on that?
We don't. Manager Rafter has removed Cobo.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Well, then, move approval of the contract with Scheit & Bachman USA, Inc. and Offshore Property Services, LLC, subject to obtaining approval from the Town of Nantucket Procurement Office.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Buscarin?
Aye.
Commissioner Topham?
Job?
Commissioner Planzer?
Aye.
Commissioner Drake?
Yes, aye.
And Commissioner Gasparo votes aye as well. Thank you. Moving on, we're on to our budget.
If I may,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, if we could take these out of order slightly and do the first quarter update first,
Sure.
just because you'll get a sense of where we're going in terms of the budget too. But the first quarter update is in draft format here as an attachment. The town, as you may recall, had replaced the individual that normally does this. We're working with them to finalize it. We think this is pretty close to the final. But I will just call your attention to the fact that I think it's very good news. We're about 75% ahead of where we were last year. So we're still showing a decent income there, a profit. So the reason I asked that it be taken first, we have to present this on the 18th to the Board of Selectmen. And as I have mentioned to the Board of Selectmen, to the Finance Committee, and to this Commission, we are in the process of building a budget, and that doesn't happen in a year. It takes a couple of years of history. So as we go into the budget, you're going to see a lot of information, some new things, and we're still working towards that, but we're managing to the actual. And the results, I think, speak for themselves in the quarterly. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Any questions on the quarterly report?
Anything specific that you may want to highlight to us?
Something I just want to point out in revenues, last year for the first quarter, we had a bump in the revenues because of some significant efforts by Jamie and Deb to collect some of the money that was outstanding. So we expected a little bit of an anomaly. There's some things offsetting that this year, one of which is PFC. You'll see there's a big jump in the PFC because we had just started that last year. And the other is in just some of the increased rates that the Commission approved. We're seeing the results of that as well. So while we saw a bump last year that we didn't expect, we have some other things that are kicking us up to that and then some. So we also, as you'll see through some of the statistical slides, had a very, very strong September as opposed to last year. So the expenses, we're continuing to try to hold that tight as we can. But again, we have to hold our breath and try to get through the winter too. So,
Commissioners, any comments on the first quarter report?
No.
It's very good looking, I will say.
Yeah.
Thanks. And then, so moving on to the proposed budget, I'll note that our business manager is in attendance, which I very much appreciate.
and I will say that This will probably be Jamie's last meeting for a couple of months. So we're looking to try
Are
to
you going somewhere?
She'll be working on it for a little bit. There is about a $700,000 increase in the budget from the FY15. And I just want to highlight some of the large drivers of that. The payroll went up about $186,000 due to the cost of living and merit increases union agreement. There's about $200,000 repayment to the general fund, which was not in there in previous years. Airfield maintenance saw a significant jump, about $87,000. We do have $10,000 in contingency, and we added $66,000 of professional services. Some of that associated with some legal issues that we're dealing with that we anticipate some costs on. And the other was some increase in the FBO, which is associated primarily with catering and credit cards. But the offset to that, the good news is that there's revenue associated with both of those that offset those costs. And so that's the primary. They're the primary drivers for the expense side of things. But again, I just, Jamie did a tremendous job here in showing the notes and also, some other information for the commission. We are building this information. She's, collecting this data. So it's only as good as the history that we have. You'll see in some of the notes that they took a zero-based approach to a specific line item. There were transfers in and out of line items, so we're trying to get, a better handle on exactly where, these expenses are coming from and what they are. Are they one-time expenses? Are they, repetitive types? So I give Jamie a lot of credit in building this, but it is a work in progress still, and we're transitioning, if you will, from historical to a little more detailed, data-driven budget. And on the summary sheet, you'll see we don't have retained earnings certified yet, but we are anticipating that we will have another significant retained earnings surplus this year, or from last year, I should say.
On that topic, if I may, do you have any sense of magnitude? Yeah.
Well, we just, when we got the
Quarterly.
quarterly,
You may have to go to the mic so Dan can hear you.
Sorry.
Take your time.
So if you look back on the.
A little closer to the mic, I'm sorry.
Sorry. If you look back on the first quarter update, it does say on the summary page, the certified retained earnings for use in fiscal 16 is 2.2 million. I haven't been able to verify that. We never got notice from town, but that's what was provided on the quarterly report.
That's what I was
So-
sort of driving at, where it was missing or
Which-
not listed at all on this.
it's-
At least we have a sense.
It's probably about right. Last year's was 1.8 million, so, or the prior years, I should say.
1.3,
1.3?
according to this.
Well, we used 5. Okay.
And while you're at the microphone, I just would quickly say I very much appreciate the explanations that have been added to the edge of the budget. I found those to be quite helpful. Anything of particular concern or interest that, as a business manager, you would want to bring to our attention? I know that's on the spot, but you're here.
Right, no. Can I grab my notes?
Yes, well, absolutely.
There was, like, for one in particular, the PFC revenue, I wanted to be conservative because employments are decreasing. So that I brought down a little bit from what the actual was.
I noticed that in your comment.
So that was kind of a big one. The because of the abatements for the land, we had to take into consideration that decrease, but the potential of additional
Sun Island Road
Yeah.
rentals, which again, we are conservative on that too, but we feel will at least offset those numbers.
as far as the expenses go, I mean, you're aware of the bigger ones anyways, so nothing else really comes to mind as
We
needing
did
to
add,
bring out.
we added a little bit of money in for marketing and some air service development things, as well as an event or two possibly associated with marketing, so I think it's not a lot of money, it might be a total of $6,000 or so.
And the one other item that I had noticed, and it's something I know I've brought up over the years, is the contingency reserve line item. And I just thought maybe that as a commission, we might want to have some discussion as to what that amount should be, because it's certainly a bit of a floater. I saw that there was a $10,000 amount. I'm open to discussion, but I'm just sort of
And I'll
wondering.
be honest, I had Jamie put that in there as a placeholder at 10,000. You know, in some discussions we had, it might be more realistic at 25,000 because there's certain items that you're going to get up to an amount where an emergency where you're going to may have to go to another fund or whatever. But I think 25 is probably a good cushion. But I would also, and I don't remember if the commission has established a policy or what we did, but you know, this may be one of those ones that doesn't get spent without coming back to the commission first or something.
I like the idea of that. I know in our past discussions when we were talking about adding that line item to the budget, it was also important that it not in any way be considered sort of a slush fund, right? And that, you know, but thinking about some of the emergency, the ARF building that we had, or a jet that, you know, something where we really unanticipated expenses to a certain point. And so
or where you have expenses that you can't be, that you get reimbursed for by insurance, for example, but you can't spend the proceeds.
That's exactly sort of what I had in mind. And if I'm open to staff recommendation, and from what I'm hearing from the manager is that perhaps 25 might be a better number, and with all hopes that we don't spend it, you know, and that the manager understands that the staff as well, that approval of those expenditures would come to the commission.
I think that's reasonable.
That works for your budget as well.
We can put that.
Is everybody in agreement
I agree.
on that
Yeah,
change?
sounds good.
And the one other item I had noticed, and I know I'm getting down to I do read all of these line items, and this is small, and I'm not asking for any change, but I noticed there was a bit of an increase in the telephone, and I know that we moved to a whole new system. The one question I had is that just for the ShoreTel, or does that cover all of the cell phones and
believe that's
everything
everything.
else when we start talking about that kind of?
That's everything that.
Thanks. That was my only question.
And it may still go down, but we haven't seen. I
It's
haven't
a
seen
new
the change.
year.
Right, I haven't seen the change from
Mhm.
the older stuff coming out yet. So, but we're working. I've inquired with town. I'm just
Thanks.
waiting on that. So, conservative number. It could be lowered.
Anything else from the commission while we have Jamie at the microphone? Any questions?
I just wanted to say that I really appreciate the
I have two.
explanations, too. You really
Well,
help.
you're very welcome.
Go ahead, Dan.
Debt service. We've been talking that at some point there was going to be some payoff of some of the longer-term bonds. Is that coming up in 18? What is the schedule with that?
That I am not sure what the plan is for that.
Perhaps you could, I'm sorry, he's on the next.
I'm not 100% sure what the plan is for the payoff of debt service.
Dan,
No, but I mean, under the schedule, if you don't have it with you, that's fine. But under the schedule, I thought there was supposed to be a drop off. You know, some of the debt was going to be fully paid off.
there was
I thought it
one,
was going to be next year, but I guess it doesn't look like it from the numbers.
well, there was some that were dropping off, but then there's also others that were taking long-term. But the key thing there, I think, is, too, to understand that we're going to apply the PFC to some of those longer-term, larger ones to
No,
offset.
I understand that, Mr. Rafter, but I'm looking at the numbers for 15, 16, and 17 for the long-term debt service, and it's flat, pretty much.
These are the
And,
updated numbers as of last month from the treasurer.
So I think, if I may, the question is, if it's not this year, is it next year? When are we at a point when we're starting
I'll have to
to
get back to
retire
you.
some of the debt
there's
service,
one or
so
two that were going
we could
off.
see a
Okay.
decrease on the line item?
Okay, I can definitely get you that information. I just don't have.
I understand it's
it
not.
handy.
It
Yeah.
sounds like it's not for this year's budget,
No,
but
no.
does
there's no
that
drop.
somewhat answer your question, Dan?
We were looking to
Yes.
find out which ones are dropping off, though. We'll find out.
And did you have another question?
I did, but I've forgotten what it was.
Anything else on the budget from anyone else?
No.
What's the process now, Mr. Rafter?
I will present, well, I have a meeting scheduled, I don't think it's until January, actually, with town administration for the budget. So, if there's any other comments or anything else, please get them into us. As I said, Jamie's limited service, but if there's any other changes, we want to get those done. If the commission's comfortable adopting it tonight, we can do that. If not, I believe, I'm pretty sure my meeting is not until January with town administration, then it will go to the Board of Selectmen.
Well, that's my recollection, is that the reason in the past that we wanted it on November was so that when we started in December, it wasn't
Well, and because
you must do it. Because
Jamie will
we're-
not most likely be here.
But I'm talking
for
past.
December. Right.
Yeah.
right,
Iterations. This is obviously a much improved document and process.
And we're ahead of the game a little
Yeah,
bit.
I would like to add my commendation to that. I think having the explanations is really helpful.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I have less questions now.
Well, that was my goal.
So I think we just hold this for refinement and
For December.
ratification in December. If
Yeah, we'll
there's-
make the changes according to tonight, and then,
So, from my understanding, the only change is the contingency number to 25. Is that correct?
I believe that's.
Sounds good to me. I mean, unless the commissioners felt you wanted to make them, handle it tonight, I leave it on the table.
It's fine. I just want to make sure that I hand it off to whoever in case I am not here for the next meeting.
Seems to me we're pretty close, and we could
Do you wanna
certainly
make a
entertain a motion
today?
unless someone had any additional concern.
So I'll make the motion to put 25,000 in the contingency fund, to change the figure from,
10.
10 to 25.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on the motion?
Excuse me, I don't know that we need a motion on it. He can just do it, and then it'll be approved in the final.
Right, are we approving
Well,
the budget,
I
or we
think
can
that was what
approve
I was
the?
putting forth, is either that instead of having to carry it forward for one more month, we either could do it as a motion and approve the budget right now, subject to that one change, or if that's the discussion, unless the commission felt that it should be held over for refinement and back on the agenda in December.
My feeling is it should be held open as long as practicable.
Commissioners,
I'll withdraw my motion.
I'm fine either way,
Yeah,
personally.
fine.
Guys,
Likewise.
Sounds good.
I
Sounds
do
like
recognize Jamie's situation, but I think that it's
what might change, sure, unforeseen circumstances or whatnot.
right.
That may pop up, so we'll put this on the agenda in December and have that one change, and hopefully just that one change, but if something
That's
comes
fine.
up.
There may be other tweaks as well, but
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point considering other things that may be in flux. So we'll look forward to handling
That's
this in
perfectly
December.
fine.
Thank you for coming
Thank you,
and
Jane.
your
Yeah,
efforts.
thank you.
Moving on to the manager's report, please.
On their projects, the North Apron Rehabilitation Project is complete. We're expecting to do the final inspection this Thursday with the FAA and DOT. The air traffic control tower work is progressing, moving along fairly well. Some of you may have seen a structure that's being built on the north ramp, a pretty big steel structure, 30 by 30 by 30. Our clerk of the works has been overseeing that. Thank you, Dave. And just so you're aware, weather permitting, they're anticipating to lift this structure and put it over top of the existing control tower cab. The intent is to essentially create a cocoon, if you will, over top of it so that they can work inside during the winter months. Very creative solution, I think, from a construction perspective, and should work well. The majority of the asbestos abatement is complete. Demolition work is started.
excuse me, Mr. Rafter, in the context of that structure, are they going to continue to run the revolving beacon that's up on the roof, or are they
No,
going to shut that down?
That beacon gets removed. We've already purchased a new one, and they will put the new one on top of this structure. And the old one, we're looking at ways to possibly utilize that, similar to maybe what Hyannis has done in their lobby. So the new beacon is in, and they'll be installing that on top of the structure once it gets put in there.
All right, thank you.
Let's see what else. We also held a pre-scoping meeting with the FAA and MassDOT on 3 projects: the airfield lighting vault rehabilitation, flight information display system and public address, and the interactive employee training. So that went well. We're going to proceed with preparing the scope of work for those projects. We may consider a design-build approach to the flight information display system and public address system. Taxiway markings, the work has been completed by the contractor that was funded through the state Mass DOT ASMP grant, or I'm sorry, direct funding from them. Again, I can't say enough about the programs that those folks do. Between the marking that saves us a lot of money, and last year they did crack sealing, extending the life of the pavement. They do a tremendous amount of work for us. On the RFQ, RFP side of the house, there was you may recall there was a bid protest, if you will, filed by Team Eagle representing Oshkosh on the snow removal equipment, and legal is reviewing that, working with the engineer, and I believe we have a call scheduled for Thursday or Friday to try to get that resolved. There's the IFP for the fuel farm inspection will be advertised this week. Rental car concession advertisements were out, or they're out, and we received a request from one of the proposers for an extension because of relocating their corporate office, so we're going to grant them the extension. We're also continuing work on the airport gas RFP, working with the town to incorporate the fueling of town vehicles in that RFP as well. On the operations side of the house, NIMS training took place this last week, and for the commissioners that were unable to attend, they can do it online, NIMS 700. Winter preparation, the next phases have begun. I was quite sad to see today that they were putting all the plows together and getting them organized, and I know that means that 4-letter word may be on its way, but they're taking the appropriate steps. There was a Civic League sponsored event this past weekend on seasonal housing, well attended, a lot of comments, and they're looking at trying to come up with some solutions for pilot program possibly this season. They're going to hopefully work with someone to develop a clearinghouse. As you know, the special town meeting was held last night, well attended. All the articles passed. Nothing directly impacting the airport. There's, the major housing though. Statistics. We have the September statistics with the October fuel stats in it. And operations are actually up almost 7% for September, and year-to-date 1.4%. That's a change in the way things have been going. The employments, however, are still dropping. 2.2% for September, down 4.2 year-to-date. And you'll see in this slide, it continues, I think, with the increases. Cape Air is seeing an increase, and again, that's the Cape Air Boston service. As we didn't detail, you'll see where the others are slipping. The Tradewind's doing well, and JetBlue, they were in Express, very pleased with the season. You can see up 37% for September. The significant percentage increase in U.S. Airways was simply because they had 6 flights instead of 3, and we continue to encourage the other seasonals to extend their season as JetBlue has done. This slide I added, it's just a snapshot of what's going on in our region for the 12 months finishing, I believe it was June 30. And you'll see there's a number of other airports, especially the smaller ones, seeing a decline in passenger enplanements. The ironic part is there's a number also, just like ourselves, that see a decline in enplanements but an increase in the airline revenue. So although this is indicating a 6% decline in enplanements, there's a 5% increase in airline revenue. So, you know, I just wanted to show you this from a regional perspective where some of the other airports are and give you an indication of what's happening out there. We continue developing the market data, and you'll see here the Boston flights doing fairly well. They're holding their own. September was a very strong month for Boston and for the airport in general here, so that's good news. We're extending that season, as I mentioned. DCA did very well. It's a very strong market for us, and that's why I asked the question earlier. You'll see JetBlue did well in it, and U.S. Air continues to do fairly well in that market. New Bedford, it's kind of holding its own, but you know, it's a marginal market right now. Newark, again, we saw significant drops there, but that was primarily because of the very short season that United had this year in only 6 weeks, so we're trying to work with them to encourage extension of that.
And what were they in the past?
They would be here for two months to, I don't know, almost 10 weeks or more.
Mm-hmm.
So White Plains, something, and Dave, I meant to talk to you about this. We need to add the Tradewin numbers to White Plains here. This is showing Cape Air's White Plains, and you can see again they were down for a number of months, but September was up significantly over last year. So as I said, we're seeing these indicators that the shoulder is expanding. Here's where we see a lot of red ink in the Hyannis market, from Island to well, the Nantucket, Hack Air, Cape Air, all of them are kind of showing some red ink in the Hyannis market, and a lot of that continues to be the competition with the boat. JFK, another pretty strong market for us. You can see Delta saw some drops, but the numbers on the JetBlue side more than picked up for that. It's a larger airplane and significant increases in that market. They also at times were adding a 3rd flight to Kennedy last year. The Vineyard is again dropping as well, and a lot of that has to do with the timing of the flights. It's very difficult getting to and from. Providence, again, you know, an increase in September, but prior months weren't doing so well. So, and on the jet fuel for September, it was up 17.9%, and year-to-date 6.2%. So, as I said, it was a very strong September for us. Can you go back one, Dave? We have the October numbers. They were up slightly, just 1% in the jet fuel side. But again, that's, you know, we're showing that a little bit of an increase even in October is a good thing, but very strong increase in September. On the avgas, we saw a significant increase in September, 31%, so it's up year-to-date almost 5%. And in October, I believe we saw another increase. Do you have the next one? October was up 4% in avgas, so that's heading in the right direction. On freight was actually up for September too. As I said, it was a very good month for a number of things. But freight up 4%. Year to date, we're still down, but we're hoping to see some improvements there as well. And noise complaints were down from 46 to 14, with an explanation also included in your packet. Any questions on the statistics? Or? Hearing none.
No, if I may.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I tried.
I had to slide back over. The one that I just would, I like to see that we have some data on New Bedford, and I think that given the recent approval for a new ferry service, we should keep an eye on that.
Also Providence.
Yes, and I had a conversation recently with Cape Air. One of the challenges, in addition to the Hyannis not being profitable, one of the challenges they explained to me in New Bedford was, as in other markets, was a very high no-show factor, where people will make reservations, but they may make the reservation in the name of just in case, and they don't cancel the reservation. The Cape Air, at this time, it's my understanding they don't have a policy to do overselling, which makes a lot of sense, especially with the type aircraft. But there are a number of airlines that will intentionally oversell because they know they'll have so many no-shows. It's a very, very fine line there and a very thin margin, I think, when you're doing that. So I would just encourage the public, if you're not able to make a reservation, please contact the airline. They're running a business, and it's only fair to them to, give them a heads up at least if you can't make it. So that's my pitch for that.
Thanks. Any other commissioner comments on the statistics?
Okay,
Cool.
so go ahead.
No, I don't. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I just have a personnel update. We've interviewed some candidates for the customer service position in the FBO, and hopefully we'll be making an offer by the end of this week. We also have an advertisement out for an opening in our custodial section due to a termination. And I would like to congratulate Noah Carberg. We found out today that he has passed his certification as an airport certified employee airfield operations. Noah has really taken advantage of certain programs. He won a grant to go to what's called an ASOS, or Airport Special Operations School. He, at that school, won the study material for the ACE operations and took the test last Friday, and we found out today he passed it. It is a very, very thorough, detailed, challenging test. You may remember Preston has passed it, and Johnny passed the ACE airfield lighting program. So Noah did this on a complete self-study, and I give him a lot of credit and congratulate him and the others that have won that designation. So
Great.
Yeah, I appreciate you letting us know that, too.
Mm-hmm.
and that's the end of my report.
Please extend our
Yeah,
congratulations
absolutely.
Will do.
Does anybody have any comments on any aspect of the manager's report? Hearing none, we'll move on to commissioners' comments. First is the meeting schedule, which has been laid out before us, which is for the, it seems like it worked out pretty nicely for the entire year of 2016 as the second Tuesday of the month. Are there any conflicts or concerns with anybody with any of the dates?
I have a conflict in May. I have
Well,
appointments, doctor appointments, but that's a long time away.
to. Yep.
Sounds good, so we'll consider that schedule adopted. Any other commissioners' comments?
I have one comment, and it's those posts, the cement posts, which are now painted white. But I was at the hospital yesterday at the Cape Cod Hospital. They have the white post, but they have this wonderful light on it, which makes the whole parking lot much more light, I guess, so,
On the post itself?
on the post
I should have
itself.
taken a picture with you.
Shucks, I didn't think. I may have to go back. But I didn't know what would be involved, the electricity, to get the electricity to our post, because it was really, I thought, this is what we need. And the other thing they have, which is maybe because it's a hospital, all their walkways are painted blue, and they're very visible to me, anyhow. So that's only my only comment.
And I joked a little bit, but seriously, if you are over there, anyone is, if there's any way of taking a picture, it'd be very helpful.
Yeah,
But
I'll try.
we're looking at that. The walkways being blue is interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was, I mean, it was really, you could see it, and they also have driving into their airport, because, hospital, it's blue, because they have so many buildings there, and you go to the hospital, you go to the O'Keefe Pavilion and all that, so I thought that was interesting.
We'll look into that.
Any other commissioner comments? Dan, you have anything?
Yeah, I just want to raise the issue of what do we charge the wine festival
Last year was 43.
for their
40.
due?
Last year was 4,300.
Was that based on actual expenses? What was the?
It was, yes. Was that plus?
It seems to me that we should probably, I'm not saying we should do it for them for next year, but going forward, consider amending our rates and charges to charge a fixed amount plus expenses.
That's what we do. We have, there is a fixed amount plus reimbursement for all costs.
So that's already in the fee
Well,
schedule, Manager?
Yes.
I don't know if it's listed on
No,
It
I
may
think
not be
that's
broken out that way,
yeah,
but that's the way it
and
was.
I think that's Dan's point is that we probably
Should
ought to
identify
have an asterisk next to the
Rates, okay.
when we do next time we do our rates and charges. Am I understanding you correctly, Dan? That says
Yeah.
fixed fee asterisks,
Plus cost.
reasonable, rates and
Reimbursable
Well, plus
expenses, right, that are incurred by us.
Okay.
Sort of a license fee kind
Right.
of thing for them to use the event. And then the question that follows along with that we don't have to talk about right now, but I would love to have airport management consider is whether we promote events at the airport.
That would be part of the
I think this
marketing plan we're
question
looking to
that
develop.
Ms. Bean raised also about, or the lady from the airline, about using them as a vehicle to promote the airport is something which we should consider, I think, formally.
I think there's an opportunity to get some
It was
mileage.
as part of these deals of some kind of promotion of Nantucket as airport as a destination.
Right, like perhaps we want to be list our website or a link or something listed in their materials
Yeah.
and things like that.
Right.
Okay.
Maybe if we do that, we give a bit of a discount on the fee. I don't know.
Or maybe it's just
But
that's
I think these are things that we need to think about.
Yes, we can work to partner with them. That's a good idea.
anything further?
That's it.
Anybody else? I don't have anything either. Any public comment tonight? Yes, sir. Please go to the microphone if you would and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Brian DiBiasio from Island Airlines, station manager here in Nantucket. Questions for Tom. Tom, with that capsule that's going to go on, when is that slated to happen, and will there be any impact on closure of the airport or flights coming in and out?
We're anticipating, weather permitting, having it done Friday. And from a safety perspective, we're working around a time frame and looking at where we may, empty the terminal and put it up on top and make sure everything's safe before we bring people back. But
Do you have an idea of how long that's going to be?
no, but
You know?
the objective is going to be to minimize any disruption to flights.
Right, because we're flying every hour on the hour. Friday morning or afternoon? All right,
Honestly, I don't know that's going to happen Friday with the weather that's
Okay.
predicted.
Right. Right. Just to know, our lag period as far as commuter flights, and again, I'm looking at our down revenue and minimize any impact on that. We are busy in the morning with people coming in up until about 10 o'clock, and then the afternoon rush starts picking up from 2 o'clock onward.
So somewhere between 10 and 12 is probably the best, or
Yeah,
10
to
and
start
1.
it, between 10 and 2 is a good window as far as timing, if that's at all possible, taking into consideration our busiest times of inbound and outbound
That's-
flights.
That's what we need to know from you. Thank you.
Okay, my
And
pleasure.
We'll do our best to minimize any disruption at all.
And if I may add, I would ask that there remain as open of a line of communication, between our staff and,
Not a
and,
problem.
both of our
Dave is-
commuter operators.
Yeah.
This morning, it's just, right now, it's an unknown.
Just keep,
Mm-hmm.
as soon as you know.
So if it's not Friday, it's not going to be the weekend.
No.
Mr. Gasparo, could I
Dave
ask
is
a
our
question?
boots on the ground there, too, so.
Okay.
Yeah, go.
Since presumably the number of flights that would be impacted by this would be fairly small, the ones that would have the greatest impact would probably be the secure flights. But I'm wondering if, at least for the non-secure flights, those flights, customers, after they check in, could be directed over to the FBO for boarding.
The problem will be checking in at the counter, because
That's
that's
it.
what we're gonna be keeping clear.
Yeah, we're looking to keep the main lobby clear while the actual lift is
That's
taking
right.
place.
Okay,
but
sorry, bad idea.
Yeah, so I mean, my concern, again, our concern is being that is, we may have to cancel flights. Our inbound flights coming from Hyannis are not a problem. Don't worry about outbound flights going out.
Our objective is not to have any impact on the flights.
Okay. So 10 and 2 is our slowest window. We're usually flying one plane during those times every hour on the hour. Before 10 o'clock, we may have 2, sometimes 3 planes coming in.
Okay.
And then after 2 o'clock, we have 2 to 3 flights every hour on the hour
Right.
going outbound out of the island. So
Okay.
as
I've mentioned to them about the evening, like 5:30, the wind usually lies down most nights anyway, more so than.
So, yeah, that may be even less of
I
an
don't know
impact.
if they can do it at night.
I was going to say, how about the light,
Yeah.
darkness?
I mean, that's all.
Yeah.
We'll see.
my
Yeah.
5 o'clock, our 5 o'clock flight's 3 planes usually. 6 o'clock is 2. We're down at 7 o'clock on one flight for 7 o'clock.
Yeah, we're looking at after that.
Okay, that would be ideal for us.
Yeah, but I don't know if they can do it. We'll see.
Okay.
Darkness.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think the key here is giving as much notice as possible as well.
Right, as soon as you
Yeah.
know, let them know
Yeah.
and
Yeah, it's all based
stay in
on
touch.
I prep management in Hyannis so they know what's going on.
Appreciate that and your comment. Thank you. With that, we will. I would entertain a motion to adjourn and to go into executive session, not to return to open session for the reasons as enumerated on the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
That would be Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, purposes A, B, C, and D listed on the agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Roll call, Mr. Buscarin,
Aye.
Ms. Topham,
Aye.
Ms. Planzer,
Aye.
Mr. Drake,
Aye.
and the Commissioner, Chairman votes aye. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Just make sure you stay in touch with both of those guys.
Were you watching us?
Yeah, but it was very disjointed. It was,
Nuts.
I mean, it sounded awful. I was watching, it was,
So it was streaming.
it was hard to watch because it clearly wasn't in sync with the conversation.
I was watching the selectmen yesterday partially on my phone with that when they were having the memorandum of agreement with Richmond, and it several times like just froze up on me.
Right.
Yeah. And it's somehow part of the system, but I think Janine's concern was that it hadn't been started, but clearly it had been.
Something like that. It started, now it appears to be.
Yeah, Janine just pulled the plug. No, that's the beauty of it, and now they're able to do it without them coming. Oh.
Somebody's controlling the camera.
Oh, the camera was moving?
Yeah, they do that.
But I didn't think they were here.